So the big tax question is this: how do wealthy people keep their money working for them when selling their business, real estate, or other highly appreciated assets without paying hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in tax? What if we, as business and real estate owners who have poured blood, sweat, and tears to growing our wealth, and who didn't hire expensive tax attorneys and CPAs to map out an exit strategy, knew their secrets? Instead of recreating the wheel, why can't we just model the way they deferred 30 to 50% in tax, paid off debt, funded their next business dream, and most importantly, leave a financial legacy to give to the causes we believe in most? What if their secrets weren't complicated at all, and you just need a guide who is a few steps ahead of you? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Brett Swarts, and welcome to Capital Gains Tax Solutions. Welcome to the Build to Billions podcast, where we guide successful entrepreneurs and investors on their journey from millions to billions. We believe the key to scaling and compounding your wealth and life starts every single day with the mindset and practice of stewardship over ownership and applying billionaire biblical principles. Our ultimate goal is to help you scale your wealth and your life so you can give more all of it away to help MVPs. My name is Brett Swarts. Each and every episode, we're joined by some of the world's top entrepreneurs, millionaires, or billionaires, and they share their secrets, wisdom, and story with us so we can all level up in all of these areas and make a bigger impact. I'm excited about our next guest. Not only is he a friend of mine in a mastermind, but more than that, he is the founder and a top 1% franchise consultant in the U.S. And he's founder of Fran Bridge. And he's a frequent contributor of franchising across a variety of outlets and publications. He's built a multi-brand franchise himself. Along with his business partners, he has great operators leading these ventures. As a result, he is able to commit over 90% of his time to helping others achieve their own dreams of freedom and wealth generation through business ownership. And today we're going to be talking about non-food franchising and basically how to build wealth with non-food franchising. Please welcome to the show with me, Mr. John Ostenson. John, how are you doing?
Brett, doing great. Excited to be with you, my friend.
Grateful to have you. For our listeners, get to know you for the first time, would you give us just a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Yeah, absolutely. Like so many of your listeners, I spent many years in the corporate world and had a great run and very thankful for it, but always had that desire to do something more entrepreneurial and didn't know what it looked like. And I always associated franchising with fast food and really didn't realize there was more to it. And had the opportunity about a decade ago to step in and serve as president of Shelf Genie franchise system and support all of our franchisees across North America, and really fell in love with the franchise model through that experience. So I've since invested in franchises myself and helped hundreds of others step into business ownership as well. And essentially what we do, you can think of me as a real estate broker, but for franchises. And we work with over 600 different franchise brands that are looking to expand across the U.S. And I love connecting our clients with the top opportunities as we see it in their markets.
Fantastic. And before we dive into, how to build wealth with non-food franchising and all of those cool secrets, I do want to take one other step back, John. I believe we've all been given certain gifts in this life, and these gifts will be given us to be a blessing, help to others. John, growing up, what was the one or two, God-given gifts you believe you were given, and how does that help how you help and bless people today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, was very fortunate, grew up in a middle income family, but I'd say we're kind of on the lower end of the middle income. I went to a private school, but we're probably the poorest family in the private school. So it kind of created a little bit of an inner desire in me to have different types of money conversations in my household one day. And so that certainly inspired me to work hard in school and in my career. And I think I've been able to encourage other people in their career paths. All throughout, I've always been one that's been giving advice, even when I was in a different capacity, and also just being able to give. I love what you're doing, Brett, and we talk a lot about this offline, but I believe to whom much is given, much is expected. And so it comes from the book of Matthew, and that whole idea around stewardship is something that's very important to me. So we're able to, our family supports a lot of nonprofits. We were down in Nicaragua on a mission trip this summer, which was great. And I just love finding ways to give back, because I think that's ultimately what it comes down to.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, with that in mind, let's dive right into the topic, which is the top secrets to building a non-food franchising wealth. So John, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. We've never seen so much interest in franchising, from where I sit. And I think, for a variety of reasons, people are looking to get into business ownership, to have a little more freedom, flexibility, live life on their terms. And, Brett, I always want to point out, if business ownership was easy, everyone would be a business owner. It's not easy, but you're trading your current set of challenges for a whole new set. And a lot of people just want to have that control, and they want to have something they can pass on to their kids. And oftentimes people don't have that $1 million idea, and so they say maybe franchising makes sense. Essentially you have training wheels, if you will. You've got a proven model. You've got a coach on the sidelines in that franchisor. You've got a community of other franchisees that are living the same thing day in, day out, almost like a mastermind, like you mentioned, exchanging best practices. And there's just so many benefits. And a lot of our clients will come back and buy additional franchises over time. It's what I call franchise stacking. And they build this portfolio of businesses that they own. And by having that support of the franchisor supporting their teams, it allows them to really build this empire, if you will.
Okay, so it sounds like the first secret is that you don't have to do it alone. There's so much support, community, proven business model. It's kind of like, training wheels, and you can trade your current set of challenges for this new set that could be more of a legacy and more freedom and probably more revenue, right, or more income for the family. What's the number 2 secret?
Yeah, well, I think, it's important to date around before you pull the trigger. And so it's important to have conversations with multiple franchises to go deep, to understand what would be a good fit for you. You start to crystallize in your mind those characteristics that are important to you, through the process. And that's how we've set it up, as a whole discovery process that takes about 2 months to go through. And so I would say franchising is just like every other industry in that you've got really strong players and you've got some that are not as strong, right? You've got close to 4,000 franchise brands in the US. There's a lot of noise out there. Some of these companies should not be franchises. That's where we come in with our relationships, with our due diligence to help our clients identify the strongest companies, but also those that can make the most sense for their situation and the role they're looking to play in their business and their past skill sets. And so I'd say the due diligence part on the front end, ultimately date around, but then be selective in who you marry.
Okay, that makes sense. So the discovery process, taking your time to look at multiple different franchise models and different companies and different things that they're doing, and to see what uniquely fits your skill set and passions, and then and then you work with a professional like yourself who's done it for so many others, right, to guide them through this process. Is that a fair summary? Instead of number 2?
It is, and it's entirely free to work with us. We simply get a referral fee from the brands, and none of that's passed on to our clients. So it's a nice, clean model that we're able to step into with our clients.
Awesome. What's secret number 3 to building wealth within the non-food franchising world?
Well, one more point on that front end. I would say, being open-minded. Probably 90% of our clients end up purchasing something that was never even on their radar, or in an industry that was never on their radar. And so, we see so many varieties of backgrounds getting involved in things from home and property services to health and wellness to categories like kids or pets or seniors. Essentially, the theme is businesses that aren't going to be disrupted by AI, that are going to stand the test of time, that people will always be spending on. Understandable, cash flowing, non-trendy businesses is where we see people going. So I'd say coming into it open-minded on the front end, but then for point number 4, which you're about to tee me up for, and these are just off the top of my head, but I would say from an operational standpoint, getting involved once you've pulled the trigger, you're in the franchise. Follow the system. That's why you bought a franchise. Where I see people fall down is when they come in and they've got baggage and they think they're the smartest person in the room, no matter what room they're in. And they question everything. A good franchisor is going to let you be innovative and try new things, but ultimately follow the system. I've just seen it time and time again. The most successful franchisees are the ones that come in with a humble mindset and say, hey, I'm going to take something that's already been proven out, and I'm just going to go execute the heck out of it and then move on to the next thing.
Speaking of that, I'm curious, what's the hardest part of the system that seems to be the most challenging for those that are coming in to implement? Because that seems so simple what you said there, but obviously there's probably some key ones that are like, these ones always tend to be the roadblock because of, is something coming to mind? I'm just kind of curious what those are.
Yeah, end of the day, what we're talking about is business ownership. It's through the franchising model, but end of the day, you're hiring people, you're working with clients. Franchisors helping heavily on a lot of these pieces like lead generation, but ultimately you're still providing value to the market, right? These are small businesses and they're getting involved in their local communities. And so I would say where people may fall down is not understanding that it still takes a lot of work. Again, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, but there's a reason why you can make outsized returns. And this, in business ownership, you get the tax playbook opened up to you, right? There's very few investments. The government incentivizes people to become business owners. open up the playbook from a tax standpoint. They want you creating jobs. And so just like real estate has some benefits, so does business ownership. I'm a believer in all of the above. I personally invest in a variety of different asset classes. And I think business ownership plays a key role within an investor's portfolio.
Speaking of taxes, the big beautiful bill just got passed, and I'm wondering, like, within the world in which you're placing and helping people with non-food franchising, which of the models or which of the franchises do you think most benefit for, you know, someone who's making a ton of money and is wanting to start a business and maybe get some extra tax benefits?
Yeah, I mean, certainly across the board, you know, things like QBI, you know, is the easy one. You know, your ability to pay your kids within the business is a low-hanging fruit. You know, I pay all 3 of my kids, and then they're able to move some of that money into a Roth IRA because they've, you know, received income. You know, so we've been doing that for years, and I can justify to the IRS the things they do in my business. You know, and then the other part goes to pay for private tuition, you know, private school tuition, help reimburse me. So, you know, there's ways that you can set up the structures around the family. But I'd say as far as industries, which I think was your question, you know, things that require heavy CapEx, think about like dumpsters as an example, or other equipment, machinery, where maybe it's more CapEx heavy versus personnel heavy. You know, Section 179 accelerated depreciation is the one that pops in the top of my head. You know, government's incentivizing you to make big CapEx purchases, and there's so much you can do with that. And you know, oftentimes they can also go, if one spouse is working and has a highly paid W-2 and the other one is a business owner, there's so much synergy you can do tax-wise.
Speaking of spouses, I'm curious, what's been like the most go-to, like, okay, married couple, they want to do this thing together, right? They never worked together before, but now like they're going to do, the kids are gone, and it's like, okay, what do we do this next 20 years, 30 years here? All right, let's start a business together. Or is there like, okay, these are kind of the go-to generally speaking, or is it kind of across the board?
Industry-wise, it's across the board. That is a very common occurrence, though. And I mean, we've got guys in their mid-20s coming to us. We've got a lot of folks kind of middle career around their age 40. But you know, I just got off the phone a few months ago with a gentleman who's 55, and you know, he's like, "Hey, my wife's ready to quit teaching. I've got a good corporate career that I'm just retired from 15 days ago, trying to figure out what's next." And they want to do something together. And I think understanding their roles in the business and what each one's going to do, so they don't drive each other crazy, is important. But as far as industry goes, I mean, I'm just top of my head, you know, everything from youth soccer to in-home senior care, you know, floor coating to you know, they love property services. I mean, that is an area we see a lot of private equity getting involved, a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of doctors getting involved in home and property services. That's just a needed area out there. Certainly anything health and wellness related. You think about like recovery modalities. I just had a client that bought 5 locations of a business that has infrared sauna, cold plunge, you know, red light, probably 6 other modalities all under one roof. You know, we do have some clients that like the idea of not having to have a team. And so some of those couples will say, you know, show me businesses that don't require any employees. And so, you know, obviously they'll be working in the business, not just on the business, but, you know, freight brokerage or senior placement as far as like, you know, senior facilities. That's a big one. You know, there's several models out there. I was just in London last week and met with the CEO of the largest, one of the largest franchises over there, been operating 20 years, totally sold out the UK. It's swim lessons, early childhood swim lessons. They operate in 5 countries. They're now bringing it to the US. Great model. And get this, Brett, not everyone has this. You can invest $150,000 all in, use an SBA loan or other means. Their item 19, their financial representation is just under $2 million revenue with about 35% drop in the bottom line. That's not a guarantee, but it shows the potential of what some of these models can do.
It's incredible. And by the way, speaking of Mr. John Ostenson, I'm going to spell it for you because it does sound like Austin, Texas. It's actually spelled Ostenson. And you can go and find all about what he's doing and how he could help you build wealth with non-food franchising by going to franbridgeconsulting.com. That's FRAM, bridgeconsulting.com. Okay, so a couple cool things. But one thing that came to mind, I'm thinking about what is the most fun you've seen a married couple go into what business? Like, you're like, oh, every time they go into that one, they just all have a ton of fun. And maybe they don't make the most money, but maybe they didn't really need the money, right? Maybe there's just like, it's for the joy of it all. And they can bring the kids in to come work in the summers or whatever when they're back from school. Or I'm just trying to think of like, what's the most fun you've seen for a married couple what industry was that in?
One comes to mind recently in Texas. I had a couple, they were McDonald's franchisees for many years, had about 12 locations, sold those, wanted to bring their kids into the business. Just an outstanding couple, great attitude, love working with these folks. Ultimately, they fell in love with one of the opportunities I shared with them. There was a trampoline park, one of the largest trampoline park groups in the country. And they ended up purchasing 10 trampoline parks, which that's a massive investment. You're talking about $3 million per. Most of our clients are getting into things that are about $300,000, but this was $3 million per location. So big deal. But they absolutely fell in love with it. I mean, great unit economics and financials around it. I remember them sending me a picture of them at a discovery day, meeting with the brand, and they were jumping on trampolines, just having the time of their lives. And it was just kind of like storybook for them. They fell in love with the business and went in pretty heavy.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So there you go. Right. Who's not having fun at a trampoline park? Right. And, maybe some injuries here or there, but other than that, like, let's go. Okay. That's really cool. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, well, keep going here. What's the next secret here? Right. We've talked about a couple here and we've kind of maybe got a little bit of a tangent, but you got to follow the system was secret number 2. Secret number 1 is you got to, understand that you're not alone, right? That there's lots of support. There's whole communities, there's proven track records, right? And there's others that are going to help you win and succeed. What's the next secret here to building wealth within the non-food franchising world?
Yeah, I think you want to start with the end in mind. We all get into things knowing there's got to be a roadmap and a plan. And so when it comes to business ownership, that is what is the exit down the road, right? You're building cash flow, you're getting the tax benefits, but then the third piece of that trifecta would be the exit. You're building an asset that's going to have value. And the beautiful thing about franchising is that you've got a bunch of built-in buyers in these other franchisees. I mean, the fact is most franchise resales never hit the open market because they're bought by another franchisee within the system. Someone that already understands the business. Obviously, banks love financing a deal like that because here's someone that already knows the business, the proven track record, gives them a way to expand, gives you a natural exit. So, I'd say it's kind of a built-in exit strategy. Oftentimes you see higher multiples. Research has been done to show higher multiples on franchises versus non-franchises in similar industries for a variety of reasons. So I'd say start with the end in mind.
Okay, excellent. What's the next secret?
Next secret. How many secrets are we going to have here?
I don't know until you run out of them, and then we'll go somewhere else.
In business ownership, it comes down to people. It's having making the right hires. It's and if you make a mistake, then you've got to make a tough call early on. We all know that. But it's working with good people, and that's why. I mean, when I invest, no matter what asset class, I invest in the sponsor behind it, the people at the top. Mm-hmm. And so same thing in franchising, getting to know that leadership team, that's essentially who you're marrying. That's going to be your business partner. And that can just be, if you choose the wrong one, it can be, create some headaches, but if you choose the right one, it can just lead to so much benefit. So I'd say, don't forget what's most important. It's franchising is business and business is people. Okay.
This is awesome. Okay, great. All right. So this is cool. What about kids? They're going to skip college. They're just like, I'm not going to college. I'm an entrepreneur, John. And my mom and dad will, put up the $150,000 to start this red light sauna, cold plunge. I'm into fitness. Like I'm passionate for it. Like I'm going to go just do, whatever. Right? And I'm going to get training on the side, but I want to start this business right now. Like what comes to mind there? Are you seeing that happening?
Yeah, usually it's in that case, if they're that young, it would be the parent reaching out and maybe in conjunction. We have so many father-sons or father-daughters that we work with. And in some cases, they're looking to leave the business to their kid down the road. In some cases, they're looking to just run the business and show their kids an inspiration of what they could do one day themselves. But in a lot of cases, they're actually looking to partner on the business and maybe that create some sweat equity for that younger, for the child. So, again, most come to me open-minded. They say, hey, we love health and wellness, but, in some cases, maybe we're a better customer than an owner of that space. What's maybe a lower entry, like call it $125,000, $150,000 all-in investment that we can get in and, get our toe in the water, start building, and then, create a portfolio from there. But Yeah, it is neat when you can see that. And I've got so many, I'm a member of the Entrepreneurs Organization. I've got so many different friends that are business owners, and a lot of them are having that realistic conversation just with higher education and the cost these days, and some questions about what's actually being taught on these college campuses. They're saying, hey, I would much rather invest that same money in a venture where I can mentor my child, and then I've got a franchisor that's also mentoring them, so it gives them some confidence in making this investment. And so I think you're going to continue to see that becoming an increasingly larger percentage of people's approach.
100% agree. I just, because I think at college, and my kids, my oldest she's turning 15 here in about a month. Youngest will turn 7 in about another month before that. Or so. She's like 2 months, he's 1 month. And I'm like, I wonder where college is going to be in a few years, like AI, the world, like where we're at here. And I do see an increase in that, especially with the baby boomers, so many of them retiring, right, in the next 15 years. I mean, every single day, 10,000 turn 65. And I'm going, there's got to be a lot of opportunities. Do you find, what industry you feel like is the lowest hanging non-financing opportunity where you're like, I mean, you mentioned that one with the pool, right? With the, swimming, right? So anything else that comes to mind where you're like, okay, this is super low hanging fruit, and good opportunity for it's a mature business. Baby boomers retiring, they've made all their money in it, and they're ready to, they don't have the kids to pass it on to. Now they're selling it. Like, what comes to mind? Anything come to mind in what industry?
Yeah, I'm thinking of one you mentioned, pools. I mean, actually pool cleaning. We've got a great opportunity in the pool cleaning space where, it's so, because of technology, so much of it can be run from your phone. And then they've got a call center that's fielding the calls. You don't have to staff for that. So a lot of times you see these models where it's like a done for you type, but really home services. Oftentimes that's more of a variable cost model. You've got very low overhead. You don't have that customer facing retail build out. So you're able to get in at a lower price. And oftentimes they're contractor type models where maybe your subs are more contractors, and you got to find the right ones, and sometimes that takes time, but over time, if you're bringing them consistent work, they'll be incentivized to do good work for you. So one that comes to mind would be like a flooring franchise that goes in and recoats hardwood flooring without having to fully sand them down and strip them and create a whole mess of the house. They can actually do it in one day. It's just they've got proprietary products, proprietary ways of going about refinishing. So a lot of our clients like the idea of using technology. Maybe it's a highly fragmented market where you're able to go in, have a different approach from a marketing standpoint, but then there's proprietary elements to the business as well. And you're really able to differentiate, in what may be an unsophisticated type industry. A lot of our clients like B2B services. One that I'm invested in, it's asphalt paving and line striping for parking lots. Again, very unsophisticated industry, but it's a needs-based industry. Another one I'm invested in, it provides temporary walls around renovation projects and construction sites. So it's a B2B business, an equipment rental style business. There's just so many different niches, again, that people would never think of unless they had them right in front of them. And they're like, gosh, that could actually make a lot of sense in my market. Okay,
I like this. So let's talk about the asphalt paving and line stripes. I actually had a buddy, one of my best friends. He, in Southern California, bought into a franchise, right? So he did this about a year and a half ago, and he's loving it, right? And he's doing it, and he's making good money, and like his sons will come work on some of the jobs with him, and he's getting these, he went from basically full-time sales and dental and medical and different things, and he liked it, but he's always working for somebody else, right? Yeah. And he'd perform and such, but he's like, now I'm gonna do something of my own. And so he just got into that. So on your side, because you're doing this, what you're doing right here, like how are you finding a partner, and you're putting up the money, and then the operator and the sweat equity thing, right? Like, hey, I'll put up the money, you be the operator, boom, and then you'll support them to help, whatever you can help them, whatever, all the stuff you can help them with, right? But how did you do that? I'm just curious with how you strategize when you bought yours or into yours.
For me, I've got operating partners, and so going in, and there have been times I've been more hands-on with franchises in the past, and I've sold some, and so currently today I'm invested in 4 different franchises, and I'm not operational on these. I'm more advisory on the sidelines. So won't misrepresent and act like I'm running the day-to-day. I'm not.
Right. No, that's smart. I mean, that's the way they do it, right? I mean, I think of someone like Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, right? He's got all of these businesses he's a part of, right? An owner, right? But yeah, he's sitting on the boards, right? And then he has everyone else running him. I just think that's interesting. When did you know it was time to buy into those, John? Like, or is it just kind of naturally because you're just in the business and you're just like, okay, I've seen so many people make all this money in the asphalt world. Like maybe it's my chance, or what? Like, how did you know to do that one, for example?
Yeah, I'd say it's opportunistic, and it comes down to the people that wanted to get involved as well. And so, I knew the folks who were wanting to get involved in the asphalt paving, and partnered on with them. And the one with the temporary walls, that was actually clients of mine. They bought up about half of New York, got off to a really fast start. Came to me and said, "Hey, John, we'd love to take down all of New York. Would you want to invest in it?" I said, "Yeah, it's a no-brainer if I can have some say in kind of the strategy as well." And yeah, I mean, it's been a great growth story. So yeah, I'd say it's opportunistic, and yeah. When I construct my portfolio, and I know you think along these same lines too, it's kind of like you've got your different asset classes. Each one performs a different function. And, again, I love where business ownership falls within that. Obviously, for most people, it is going to be a little more hands-on than the rest of their portfolio. But again, there's that benefit of outsized returns, tax benefits, and you're building an asset.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Everybody, again, if you want to get with John Ostenson, you can go to his website, franbridgeconsulting.com. That's franbridgeconsulting.com. And that's what it sounds like. Obviously, this is your passion, is helping others discover this, right? I think it only makes sense to do what you're telling others to do, and you're in it. You're doing it, right? And you don't necessarily have to do it all yourself as the operator, although sometimes you would, and you do, right? But you could be that financial partner, or that what's KPI, which is, you're signing on the note, for the debt because you have the net worth, and the bank, you're personally guaranteeing it, or those different things, or however you set that up. There's different ways to add value when you're coming into partnerships, whether it be advisory role, operation role, sweat equity, bringing capital, all of it. So I think that's really interesting, and practice what you preach, which is great. So what's the most rewarding thing, John, about, helping the clients that you help? And, what's maybe kind of a cool story that you could share with us about a recent family you helped?
Yeah, I mean, where I get my validation, what gets me excited, gets me going in the morning is, when clients come back and they buy additional locations, they come back and buy additional brands, they come back and refer their brother to me. Now, if they refer their brother-in-law, you never know if that's a good thing or not, but if it's their brother, no, I'm just kidding. So that's what gets me excited, is those repeat customers and or clients. And, I think a good example, my client Nathan in South Carolina. Nathan's the largest franchisee of 2 minute truck moving service, and operates now in about a dozen markets. He's continued to buy other franchisees over time. But he's built about a $40 million a year revenue business. And every year or two, he comes to me and says, "Hey, John, would love to, I've got this young guy in my organization that I want to promote, and give him more responsibility. What franchises are you liking out there right now?" And I'll introduce him to one, or to a couple of them, and he'll pick one, and he'll buy it, and then give some equity to that young person that's already proven himself in his organizations, and he'll say, "Hey, go make us proud." And in every case, they've done a great job of building this additional extension onto his portfolio, and they get ownership, they get that responsibility. He's kind of mentoring and grooming them, strong values-based guy, and has just created a culture in that organization where he's attracting some great talent because he's creating these upward mobility paths for them.
Wow, I love that. So I'm curious. So he started out with just one truck franchise. Like, is that what you're saying? That he just scaled this all the way to 40 million? Or walk through that real quick. That's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's again opportunistic. As other franchisees in the system were looking to have exits, for whatever reason, he just would scoop those up, and became the go-to, and became the largest in what's a very large franchise system, and said, "Hey, I want to diversify some and get into other brands as well." Yeah.
What's the average cost? I'm curious on his first one. Like, what was the down payment? What was the SBA? Like, what was do you remember, or what is even the average one now if you get into like a trucking industry like that?
I don't remember offhand. I will say, just for some general guidance, in a service-based industry, oftentimes you're leasing the trucks or financing them. So, I mean, there's just a lot of variables, but in a service-based industry, oftentimes it's a couple $100,000 all in, and that's including some working capital and, and such. Yeah. I'd say that's probably our average price point's $200,000 to $300,000, but we have quite a few things that are in the $100,000 range. Quite a few that are north of $300,000 as well. So it's a variety.
So what have you found if it's a JV agreement where you have person who finances, puts up the capital, the operator, what's been what's their top mistakes that you want to avoid, and what are like some of the things that the ones that have succeeded have done really well?
Yeah. Just again, business ownership 101, you want to evaluate and discuss upfront in writing who's doing what roles are being played, how decisions are being made. If things don't go as planned, what happens then? What are those fallbacks? And I always encourage people to have the revolver clause in their agreements. If you guys come to an impasse and you're not able to agree, one partner can approach the other partner. It's also called the buy-sell clause. But essentially one can approach the other one and say, hey, I value the business at $2 million, and maybe they own 50% or 49% or whatever that percentage is. The other partner has the ability to either buy them out at that valuation or sell to them at that valuation. So it's kind of like a little bit of a roulette. Keeps you honest on a valuation standpoint, but that's a helpful clause to have ultimately as a fallback. But at the end of the day, if you work with a good attorney, and certainly we have recommendations there, just putting that operating agreement in place and talking about not only when things go right, but when things go wrong, how are things handled. You just want to have that papered up ahead of time. That keeps everyone honest. And partnerships are great till they're not. So I think just being so selective on the people piece of the business, on who your partner is so key.
Awesome. There's so much wisdom. This is so good. By the way, John has a book, if you're wondering, and this book I want you all to check out. And he's going to hold it up right there. It's non-food franchising. And you're going to want to go to framebridgeconsulting.com to see if this could be a good fit for you, and to see if John and his team can help you build your wealth in non-food franchising. Let's talk tax, John. So capital gains tax, right? So we're in the same mastermind, the Wealth Mastermind, Pete Vargas, and we spent some time together, which has been great the last year. So, but we've talked some capital gains tax. I'm curious, what have you found as the best strategy for those who are exiting businesses when it comes to massive capital gains taxes? What have you implemented? And then we can talk a little bit about what I do on our side, right? And that you've learned about over this past year. I'm just curious, like what is typically people doing when they have a $10 million exit in a $2 or $3 million tax bill?
Yeah. Frankly, most of the time they're paying the tax. Unfortunately, they're paying the tax, right? I mean, I think more and more people are wising up to the fact of the DST. I was actually on the phone with my advisor last week on an unrelated topic, but they brought up DSTs, and but they only knew enough to be dangerous. So I said, hey, I've got to introduce you to my friend Brett Swarts. Remind me, I need to connect you guys. And he's a California transplant to Florida as well, just like you. But now I'd say really, as you like to say, I mean, there are very few options right there. It's not, you can't 1031 like you can in real estate, but you can defer and through the DST arrangements. So it's certainly one other path would be, kind of that charitable donation side as well, right? And so sometimes people get a little more complex around the trust side of things, but in most cases, there's not a great strategy outside of what you offer.
Thanks. Yeah. If people want to learn more about what we offer here at Capital Gains Tax Solutions, you go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We help you build a capital gains tax exit plan. You built your business, your franchise for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. You got millions of dollars of gain and millions of dollars potentially even in tax, and you want to be able to defer that and multiply and compound that wealth. You want to set up a deferred sales trust with us by going to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That being said, John, we're running out of time. You ready for the lightning round?
Let's do it.
All right, knowing what you know now, if you go back to your 20-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget make sure you tell yourself to do?
Very thankful for a lot of the lessons I've learned along the way, but I think maybe jumping into entrepreneurship a little bit sooner. It was my mid-30s I got into it, and I'm surrounded by guys who have been doing it longer. And I've never looked back. I've loved every minute, even the tough times. Awesome. Question number 2, what's the number 1 book you've recommended or gifted most the past year? Yeah, outside of my own book, right? The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy has been outstanding. It's simple stuff, but it's a reminder that every day it's those little decisions you make that compound over time. I love that. Question number 3, number 1 way you're using ChatGPT. I keep pushing myself to learn new ways. I mean, right now I'm using it. My favorite is I've got a health coach. I've set up a health coach. They've got all my metrics and blood work, and so I'm able to bounce questions off of them. Similarly, I've uploaded a lot into a business coaching mechanism. So I'd say from an advisor role is where I'm going deep with it.
I love that. So it's a health coach bot, and you say, here's all my blood work, here's all my stuff, here's my weight, my height, my age, blah blah blah, right? And then it's just, and then like it gives you like the plan for eating and the plan for whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I love that. I'm gonna try that. I haven't tried that one yet. Next question: number one leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by.
I think we hit on it earlier, but to whom much is given, much is expected, and I think, one from my high school basketball coach that's always been with me, good, better, best, never let it rest until your good is your better and your better is your best. And so it's the idea really, and this is across the 5 domains we talk about a lot in our mastermind, it's constant improvement over time. And, there are periods where you need to rest and recover, but by and large, you've got to keep moving forward. We're only on this earth for a short time. And I think we're charged with, making the most of that time.
Amen and amen. Second to last question. What are you most curious about right
now? Most curious about AI. I'm trying to consume as much content as I can and talk to other business owners about practical applications. I know, OpenAI 5.0 ChatGPT is coming down the pipe, and my understanding is that's going to blow away everything previously. So I think just trying to stay up with the times.
To that point, is there any franchise model that you think is the lowest hanging fruit to be disrupted by AI, or just enhance it? You're like, oh my gosh, just take your knowledge of AI, become an expert in that, buy this franchise or this industry-ish, right? And you can really exponentially grow the revenue and the business.
Yeah, I'd say on the negative side, there's one in business coaching. It's a very well-established one out there that we've had clients do well with. But at the end of the day, I think that, that advisory type role of a business coach, it can definitely go by the wayside due to ChatGPT. So I'd say that's one that's ripe for disruption. On the flip side, so many of these home services businesses are starting to find ways to adopt AI and predictive analytics and, everything from the marketing lead gen side to follow-ups with customers to bots that are answering the phone essentially for you, right? And so I'd say, outside of a franchise system, most people in the home services space, it's not sophisticated. The bar is pretty low, and so it's just ripe for disruption for franchises.
So we say home service, be like lawn care, pool care, cleaning, garage door repair, like snow removal. Like, is this the kind of thing you're talking about when you say home services?
Absolutely. And there's so many areas. Insulation is a $52 billion a year industry. Most people can't name a brand of insulation. So you enter with a franchise brand that has all the different approaches on go-to-market, proprietary product, or cabinets, right? That's another fragmented space. One of the franchises I'm invested in is custom pull-out shelving for your existing cabinets and your pantries. But a lot of technology around that business. So I'd say the best franchisors are looking for ways to leverage technology in a way that really disrupts in a way. That word's overused, disrupt, but I think you could say it in a lot of cases.
If it's ever been meant to use, it's AI right now. Like this is the age of disruption, right? this is here, right? So I think it's fair. All right. Last question. And it's the essence of why we're here, right? Or our thesis and our kind of our mission here, Build to Billions and Capital Gains Tax Solutions, which is encouraging and challenging ourselves every single day to be more of a steward than just an owner. We believe that ownership leads more towards entitlement if taken in the wrong way, but stewardship leads more towards gratitude, which just continues to give and bless and move forward in a positive way. So I'm curious, how do you best keep a mindset of stewardship over ownership? And you may have already said it in the previous question to the answering of of the Bible verse that you shared, but anything else that helps you to keep that mindset in check?
Yeah, an area that, we've tried to be generous with a number of nonprofits and in our church and schools and as well. And at times it's hard to write that check for an amount that's uncomfortable, but I will say in hindsight, any check that we've ever written, I've never regretted after writing it. And, I believe that where treasure goes, your heart follows. And so I think taking that uncomfortable first step, it leads you to what's on the other side of the door, which is, a lot more joy and a lot more peace than you expected could have been had.
Amazing. John Oster, I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank you for being first of all, a friend, which is great now. I can call you friend. 2, for your heart to be able to bless others who are wanting something more on the entrepreneurial side, right? 3, I want to encourage you to keep using your gifts I think part of it's clarity and action and getting people to do things that ultimately in a thoughtful way, right? That is properly thought out and then execute it. And so you did a great job, and I so appreciate you being on the show. For our listeners who want to get in touch with you, one last time, what's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, come out to our website, franbridgeconsulting.com, FRAN, bridgeconsulting.com, and share your email address. We'll send you a free downloadable copy of our book, Non-Food Franchising. It's been a great resource for those that are looking to learn more. And if you'd like to take the next step and book a call, just indicate that as well, and we'll get that set up. And again, it's entirely free to work with us, and love helping expose others to the top opportunities in their markets.
Awesome. Thanks, John. I also want to thank all of our listeners for listening or watching another episode of the Build to Billions podcast, also streamed on the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast and YouTube channels. We're on this journey with you to scale from millions to billions so we can give more, all of it away to help MVPs. I'm Brett Swarts. I appreciate you listening today, watching. Please share this with someone who can make a huge difference. And of course, if you have a massive exit from a business, Bitcoin or real estate, and you have massive capital gains taxes, we want you to pick up the book, Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan, or just go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to schedule a no-cost consultation with myself or one of my team members. Appreciate everyone listening out there, and we'll talk to you again real soon. Bye now.
You have just listened to another information-packed episode of Capital Gains Tax Solutions with Brett Swarts. We hope you enjoyed today's show and found it helpful. Visit capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to access the show notes and to access more resources. Don't forget to leave a review and join us again next time.